Welcome to the Memories of a Moonbird podcast, exploring life one story at a time. Hello friends, I'm Daniel Sherrill. Today on the show, he's a lover of good music, a family man, and has rocked some pretty great hairstyles over the decades. And for more than 20 years, he's also been a very well-respected film and television director. His long list of IMDb credits includes shows like Alias, Law & Order, Blood and Treasure, Veronica Mars, Criminal Minds, Revolution, Arrow, Supernatural, and many, many others. He's a great conversationalist, a passionate dog lover, and a self-proclaimed muscle car and Tesla enthusiast. In his spare time, he also dabbles in construction and other creative projects, and he's just a really nice guy. Pun intended. Please welcome my friend, Guy Norman B. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man.
So let's jump right in. Where were you born and raised?
Born in Miami, Florida. The first 10 years of my life, I lived in sort of Broward County, I think is the best way to describe it. And then when I was 10, we moved to sort of central Orlando area. Great place to grow up. But I knew at some point I had to, go somewhere where there was, I could study motion picture photography and become a director. Because at about 10 years old, I saw Jaws and I knew I wanted to be a director. Well,
we're going to get to that in one second. I'm just curious, though. What was little Guy like as a child?
I mean, I was a bit of an athlete. I was definitely a late bloomer. So all my friends that I, played sports with in middle school, by the end of middle school, they all started to grow and reach puberty. And little Guy stayed kind of, I knew growing up because my parents were both kind of short people. But I was way into movies and music, and I started playing guitar at 13. So, I was definitely in all the drama club stuff. And I was also, in
very
bands.
Creative type.
Yeah, which was fine. I mean, I don't think I missed out on anything, not kind of, growing up and being, an athlete in high school. I tell my 15-year-old daughter, I was a real chameleon because I could hang out in any group and feel pretty welcome. There's a great line from a Foreigner song. I'm a loner, but I'm never alone.
Well, hey, wait, and you get 2 points for mentioning Foreigner because that's like a big band from my growing up here. So kudos to you there.
Well, the first screenplay I wrote, I call it Bend the Needles because from the song Rev on the Red Line. And then it was years later that I realized it's Pin the Needles, not Bend the Needles. I always heard it as Bend the Needles, but I still like the title anyway.
Well, I know you mentioned Jaws. Were there any other particular experiences growing up that made you want to work in entertainment?
My mom was a big film fanatic. And, when we were kids, there was no VCRs or DVRs. And so a lot of times I remember, at midnight, I'd be dead asleep and my mom would come and shake me and say, you got to watch this movie. And so we'd watch like a midnight movie, something that she kind of grew up on or knew from, her childhood.
Is this the 1970s?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in 64. So yeah, 74, mid 70s. And then all through, I graduated high school in 82. So anyway, my mom was a fanatic and knew the good stuff to kind of turn me on to, which is fun. Having two daughters myself, it's been fun to kind of be the arbiter of like, you should check this movie out.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or now we just go to, we go to Apple TV and we speak into the remote and sometimes the movie's available. We watch the whole thing. I just got my 15-year-old into old Jerry Lewis. We watched The Nutty Professor, the original.
Oh, how fun.
Which is, wacky and, it kind of holds up and then parts of it are super cheesy, but she's now excited about the Eddie Murphy version, which I told her about. So, but no, like, end of the 70s, early 80s, after I knew I wanted to be a director, I didn't know how you do it, what's the course one takes to become a movie director. Who knows? I don't know. I knew that I was interested in it. And so there was a lot of great films and, Blade Runner, Road Warrior.
Great stuff.
The Verdict, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So that was all the stuff that put me on a path. So the day I got out of high school, I came to California to study film. I mean, I knew I had to kind of be where that stuff was.
And your parents were totally cool with you heading west?
Yeah, my dad had actually moved to California. My parents split up when I was 15 and my dad took a transfer from where he would work for the phone company and they were going from analog to digital. And so he was intrigued by California and never been there for any length of time. So he transferred out there, which worked out great for me because when I got out of high school, I moved with him and went to a junior college, became a resident of California, and then eventually ended up at Long Beach State. And I was a resident, so I didn't have to pay the exorbitant out of state fee because I was by that point a Californian.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know your career path started in camera, correct?
Well, yeah, I was a camera operator from like 1988, 89 to 2000, 2001.
You moved out to California because you wanted to be a director, but you ended up getting into camera first. Was that a choice, or did that just kind of happen naturally?
Well, what I knew, look, unless you are very well funded and make a student film that wins all awards and things, there's very few examples of that. You're not going to, at 24 years old or 22 years old, going to become a director. It's just not going to happen. So
right.
When I was in college, I had a couple guys. When I was a junior, they were seniors, and when they graduated and I became a senior, they got jobs at a camera rental house, kind of like Panavision. That we were a smaller, like indie kind of boutique-y one, representing this new camera from Austria called Movie Cam. There's also Aeroflex, was a big camera manufacturer, German, and they rented those cameras. So as sort of an internship, if I finish a class at like 10 or 11 or in the morning, I would get in my car in Long Beach and drive up to West Hollywood or West LA and just intern. I'd clean filters and wash tripods or whatever, not so much for credit, but just to hang out with my buddies. And so basically before I even graduated college, my senior year, I was offered a job. The boss said, "Hey, look, we always need somebody to go drive the truck and pick up equipment and do what you're doing, cleaning filters or whatever, sort of the manual labor that these two guys that, your contemporaries don't want to do anymore." So I had a job, I graduated, and like 3 days later, I showed up for work. So that was a good feeling.
That's awesome.
Rental house that I worked for was the rental division of a company called Cinema Products. And Cinema Products manufactured this piece of equipment called the Steadicam, which became, that sort of led me into that. We rented two of them. And so my guys that were a year ahead of me, they were really interested in cameras, and I was really interested in the Steadicam. So what would happen is they'd get a call for somebody to rent the Steadicam. And it really is like a box of widgets and gadgets and screws and cables.
Yeah.
And they weren't quite sure what to put in the box. They would go, "I think, you need a couple of these." And so I said, "Look, somebody's got to take the bull by the horns here." And because if somebody's renting this, they don't want to get all the way out on location and realize that they're one widget short of the thing that they need to, make this work. So, but what I ended up doing was saying, okay, I'm going to figure out exactly what needs to be in this box when we rent it. So when somebody calls up to rent it, I'm going to have a checklist of everything I need that needs to go in here. I'm going to color code stuff. I'm going to make an inventory. I typed up a list, took it over to Kinko's. I laminated it, made a couple of them. I had one that I stuck to the wall. I had one that I stuck on the inside of the case with double-sided tape. And I said, okay, every time this thing comes in or goes out, this is what has to be in the box. This is the essentials of this thing. My boss was so impressed that I did that he started sending me to workshops and things that that Cinema Products sanctioned. And I literally learned how to do Steadicam from the guy who invented it, which is like learning Garrett Brown.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that, it's sort of like learning how to fly a jet fighter by Chuck Yeager. You got the pioneer, that the guy that invented it literally. And these workshops, the instructors were guys that were working professionals, had done huge movies, and I looked up to all of them. And so I basically became half student, half instructor, half or 1/3. Representative of the company, because people would come to me and go, "Now you're with the company. How much does this cost?" And so I would put on my salesman hat. It wasn't my job, but I go, "Well, a basic setup is this, and I would recommend that you get triple cables, triple screws, triple plates." And so I kind of became a little bit of a Pied Piper for the company.
Did you get a commission for those sales?
No, but they would send me to trade shows, and I was when I went to trade shows and I demoed how it worked. I could give out as many business cards as I wanted and schmooze as much as I wanted, because I was half company, working for the company, and half independent contractor looking to get work as a camera operator. And they loved me doing it because the stigma with Steadicam was like, yeah, it's all great and fine, but it's so heavy. You have to be built like a middle linebacker for the Dolphins to even put the thing on. And so I would put it on fully loaded with everything. And at the time, I mean, this is a while ago, I was like 130, 135 pounds, and I'm carrying around like 60, 70 pounds of camera. And I'm walking around like a ballet dancer floating around, and people are like, "Oh, I always thought you had to be like a, middle linebacker." And I'm like, no, it's more like being a ballet dancer or a matador. It's like using your body. And it was fun to kind of, be in that role. And then of course, what ended up happening is once I went out on my own, I had like all these contacts I had made at trade shows and people that knew I knew what was going on with the equipment. Plus all those instructors that were like big guys and already making big movies. They would get a call for a low budget movie and say like their normal day rate is $1,200 a day or something. This low budget movie would say, I only have 500 a day. Can you do it? And they'd go, no, I can't, but I have a young man that's starting out. Let me give you his number. So I got everybody's hand-me-downs, which was great. I mean, I was willing to do great and I did a lot of low
Great
budget
experience.
Yeah, low budget, no budget. And then I fell into, this would have been, 89, 90, 91, which was the height of MTV. And a lot of those music video companies, they wanted the floating Steadicam and, all these crazy shots. And so I was more than happy to do it. And, I knew most of the time I knew the music. A lot of times I would show up, in Compton for a rap video. I didn't know the music, but I knew, sort of what to do to make it look cool. But I did get to work with a lot of my heroes. I mean, I was just looking through some tapes I had because I used to videotape stuff right off the video tap of the camera. I can't find them now, but I was digging through and I found a whole bunch of Van Halen concert I did in '92.
Oh, how cool!
And so I'm sitting here, kind of getting a little weepy watching all this great stuff coming up to Eddie and Eddie, giving me thumbs up, and it was pretty cool. So I got to work with a lot of my heroes, and what was fun is we'd sit down for lunch and they'd gather around me and go, tell me about the Steadicam. This is really interesting. I'm like, wait, tell me about your guitar playing. I'm a huge, massive fan. So it was cool to like talk to your heroes on like not a fan, hero thing, but they were like interested in what I was doing because they thought it was like a lot of them had never seen what Steadicam did.
So I have two questions for you. Number one, what was your actual first professional job in the entertainment business? And number two, when did you transition from being a Steadicam operator into a director?
So it was for this company. I had to drive all the way down to San Diego, but it was this company. It doesn't exist anymore, but they were really hot in the late 80s. And they made like tennis shoes for skateboarding. They were called Airwalk. And it was an Airwalk spot. And it was running behind kids in a park and, chasing a guy on a bicycle. And so that was the first time a production company hired me and I had to do a W-2 and as a freelance independent contractor. And that would have been sometime in '88. So we're talking 32 years ago. Jeez.
That's cool. I
was only 4 years old. So, but anyway, so that would have been my first professional gig as a freelance camera operator, way before I got in the union. I didn't get in the union until March of '91. So I had to do everything I had to do.
And that's the camera union, not the directors union.
Yeah, it would have been
IATSE
Local 600.
What does IATSE stand for?
International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees. And it was cool. I mean, I got in the union as a camera operator at 26 years old, which was the traditional way to go kind of become a camera operator is you start out as a loader. You would load film in a darkroom for a couple of years. Then you would go out there and you'd hit the sticks. You'd be a second assistant cameraman. Then you'd be a first assistant, which is in charge of focus and, the general maintenance of the camera. So then maybe after 10, 15 years, you could be an operator. So for a 26-year-old operator to walk on the set. So it was fun. It was the other thing that was fun is all those years in the rental house, 2.5 years, I met every great focus puller first assistant in the business. They all came through eventually. So when I started getting gigs as an operator, I'd call one and say, hey, I need a focus puller for a couple of days. Are you available? And they go, to work with you? Absolutely. So it was a lot of fun to have those guys that, who a year earlier I was like, can I get you a cup of coffee, sir? And now they're kind of working for me. It was a hoot because we would look at each
That's
other.
Awesome.
We just started laughing.
So how did you transition from Steadicam to directing? Because you worked on Steadicam on ER. You should tell people you did Titanic. You did some really big stuff.
So I get in the union in '91. In '94, I was about to become a father, and I was looking for something that would keep me in LA because I was always on the road. And I did something in Seattle, and I ran into a director and said, hey, I just did this new show at Warner Brothers on the Burbank, on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. And I had the worst time with the camera operator. He would just fight me. I'd say, let's do this shot. He'd go, well, it'd be easier on the dolly. Or I'd say, let's do it on Steadicam. Or, let's do it on the dolly. He'd go, let me do it on Steadicam. And I think they want to get rid of him. Do you want to work on a show that is at Warner Brothers? And at the time I lived 5 minutes away in Studio City. I said, yeah, I mean, it's generally bad mojo to replace people, but if they're going to fire the guy anyway. He goes, well, it's a show. It's a medical show, a new thing called ER. And I knew because my mom said my mom was an avid TV watcher, right? So she was like, you got to see this new show called ER. It's all this crazy stuff that you do on your camera, and I think you'd like it. So the director refers me. They call me a couple of days later. I go in and talk to the producer and cameraman, the DP, and I get the gig. And so that would have been like October of '94. They had already aired like 2-3 episodes, and it was like number one, like the number one show, which hardly ever happens. And so I kind of came in at a good time and did the
And
first.
how long were you on that show doing camera?
Well, I did the whole first season aside from like the first 4 or 5 episodes. Yeah. And then I ended up doing the whole second season, which I did a total of, I think, 40 in total. I made a couple trips to Chicago with them. So basically over all those years of working with these producers and making those trips. And I said, at some point I want to be a director. I want to direct. They saw how I worked with the cast and they saw how I worked with the crew, and they knew that, I had like sort of the skill set to do it. And I definitely wanted to. I mean, I still loved being an operator. I to this day, I think it's the greatest job in the movie business, bar none.
Do you still operate when you're directing sometimes for fun?
A little bit. I'll jump on and do a rehearsal. It kind of upsets the apple cart a little bit when you jump on. But, basically I'll say, my pedigree, anybody that knows it will say, oh, cool. This will be, the old guy still got it. Or I'll say to my operator, go watch the monitor. If I do a take, make sure I'm not photographing microphones and C-stands, because I'm going to be looking for performance and composition more than I am for the technical stuff, which as a camera operator, you're kind of more, the performance and all that stuff. That's the director's gig. So anyway, your brain shifts when you make that transition. But basically I said, I want to direct at some point. And they said, well, maybe not in the third season, because we're still kind of up and getting going, but maybe in the fourth season. So if you want to come back and do another season. And I was keen to do that, but I kept getting calls for like bigger movies and things like, cameramen would go, hey, I've been watching your work on ER. I'm doing this big movie. And one of the directors that I had done the first 2 seasons with, she was a producer, Mimi Leader. She pulled me away after season 2 to do a movie called Peacemaker with George Clooney, Nicole Kidman. It was the first movie that DreamWorks did when they became a studio. And then I did, a few other things, including Titanic. I came home from Peacemaker and I went down and did about a month on Titanic, which was a trip to see, after doing like 9 pages of work a day. Peacemaker I did in between, but we would do like 1 or 2 shots a day on Titanic. It was that.
Wow.
But a lot of it was the logistics of, working in water and all that. But
yeah. What was actually the most challenging thing you did on Titanic?
Well, trying not to kill our Steadicams, because, it was me, the A camera operator, my buddy Jimmy Muro. He got me down there because they knew there was only so many times they could sink the boat. It was, it was a set that was built on cables above a tank on a stage, purpose built in Rosarito Beach. And so there was only so many times they could sink it. I mean, most of it was made of steel, but a lot of it was wood. And they said, for the climactic scene in which, Billy Zane and David Warner are chasing Kate and Leo down the stairs, and they're shooting at them, and there's a whole bunch that got cut out of the final cut of the movie that we shot. Every time we bring it upright, we dry everything off, and they had like a crew of 100 little Mexican guys that would come out there and dry everything and replace all the settings and the lights. I mean, everything that got wet.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, there was only so many times. So they said, let's get another Steadicam down here. Let's get another 2 or 3 cameras down here. I mean, we're gonna do this thing until we can't do it anymore, and then that's it. So Cameron knew there was only so many times. So I came down. I mean, I would sit some days for like almost all day in anticipation of shooting something, and maybe we just start to shoot something, and it was pretty crazy. Like I said, a lot of what we did shoot never made the final cut, but it was trying to we wrapped everything in plastic, because as the boat started to sink, figuratively, I guess, on the cable rig, water would fill up the set, and it would start. We were in dry suits, but the Steadicam and motion picture cameras, was Panavision cameras. They're full of electronics, so we had to wrap everything in plastic and tape everything. And as soon as they yelled cut, we'd push everything up above the water, because we were now like chest deep in water. And they'd go, okay, bring first AD would go, okay, bring everything back to 1, and you'd feel everything start to move back to 1.
But didn't the water affect how the Steadicam would move?
Well, at a certain point, you had to start muscling it. I remember being in low mode a lot, which was like, instead of the camera here and the like sort of the electronics down below, we'd flip everything over so the camera would glide along the top of the water. So a lot of the idea was, as the water got deeper, we would just skim the water would be at the bottom of the frame. So as we'd start pushing the cameras up so they wouldn't get wet.
Yeah, this brings up a very interesting logistical question actually for you, which is when they have a shot where you see the cameras above water and then suddenly it goes below the water with an actor. How do they protect? They just have a watertight case on that camera for that shot, obviously?
It's a housing, or we used to have what we called splash boxes, which were a giant sort of, it looked like an aquarium, like a 100-gallon aquarium or a 50-gallon aquarium. And you'd put the camera in and you could sink it down and the water would come up to the plexi or glass, whatever they were made out of. And then when you were done with it, they'd just pull it out of the water. So the camera water could have inundated the camera at any moment. You just got to be very delicate. But yeah, underwater housings that go completely underwater, that's like a specialty that a few companies, there was only a couple. One was called Hydroflex, and that's all you wanted to deal with was those guys, because they would spend hours and days and years designing these things so they were waterproof and user friendly, because you still got to get to all the buttons and change the film.
How'd you get to directing?
Well, basically all those years of keeping in touch with the ER producers. In 98, they called me and said, "Hey, we're doing a pilot, 2-hour. Lou Diamond Phillips is a star." And one of the directors, Chris Chulak, who's still to this day my mentor, he made me a director. He said, "I really want you to come and do this pilot with me. I want you to set the look and feel of it. And if it gets picked up, I'm going to let you direct an episode." I'm like, "I'm there." So I did that in 98. Pilot season, like March, April. And at the same time, there was another John Wells production going on in New York City called Trinity. Adversaries didn't get picked up. So they called me, John Wells called me and said, "Didn't get picked up, but hey, Trinity did. Do you want to come and be part of it? And my deal is come and be the camera operator for the first, 10, 11 episodes. And then I'll let you direct one of the first 13. So they sent me a copy of it. I watched it and I said, well, it wasn't Mr. Chulak. It was, I feel like I'd be putting a New York camera operator out of work. The guy who did the pilot should probably continue to do the series. I feel weird being this like LA guy showing up there. Let me wait. And John said, "Great. I get it." And plus I was still, getting calls for these big feature films. I was doing like Austin Powers and Bowfinger, and I was working on Magnolia and some other big movies. So I wasn't hurting to do that. I still wanted to direct. So in 99, Chris Chulak called me and said, "I'm doing one in New York City." Because by that time, Trinity had been canceled. And John was really upset about it because he felt like it was a good show and he liked the crew. So he kept like key members of the crew on the payroll and made them all researchers. So they all did research for this idea that they had called Third Watch, which was cops, firemen, paramedics on the streets of New York. Of course, the other thing is I got a call at the same time from another sort of director mentor of mine, Tommy Shalami, who said, "I'm doing this thing at Warner Brothers. It all takes place in the White House, and it's about all the people that work for the president in the West Wing of the White House." So I read both scripts, and of course, West Wing was beautifully written and cast, awesome. But it wasn't kind of, the way they described it to me was that we want to make it like ER in the White House. And of course, I read Third Watch, and it's car chases and shootouts and babies being tossed out of burning buildings. And I'd always heard that if you can live a year of your life in New York City and like really take in the culture and take cabs everywhere and subways and just live there for really live there for a year, do it. And so again, I was at this point 34, 35 years old. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do it. So and it was Chulak. So the deal was, we're put for 12, so we're definitely going to do 12. We can't get canceled. We're definitely going to do it, and we'll let you direct one. So that would have been like 99, beginning of 99, and then I showed back up after we did the pilot in July to do the series, and then I got my shot in December to direct. So that would have been 21 years ago. This month, next month.
And that was your first directing job, was Third Watch?
Yeah, 21 years ago.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then from there, I assume it was a natural blossoming of opportunity at that point.
Well, it was funny. They gave me, to keep me in New York, my first episode, I did well enough where Wells gave me another one. He said, "I'm going to give you another episode to direct in the back nine." Of course, I was like thrilled. But they wanted me to kind of hang there because, I was now part of the crew and integral part of the show. And so they said, "We'll call it what you want, whether it's consulting producer or co-producer or creative consultant, but we want to offer you like this producing gig to keep you in New York." And so I signed on. I think can't remember. It must have been this like November, like of the second season, and I became a co-producer. So once that happened, and my name started showing up in the credits, my phone started ringing off the hook from CAA and ICM and UTA. They're all like, "Who's this unrepresented producer director that we're not getting 10% of?" So I was lucky enough that my Steadicam agent, who really couldn't help me much with all that stuff, she was really good friends with an agent, a longtime legendary TV agent named Elliot Webb. So I signed on with Elliot, and he kind of repped me for many years. I ended up, all in all, directing about 13 episodes of Third Watch.
Were you there for all 6 seasons of Third Watch?
No, I did the first 4 and kind of moved on in a good way, because my agent would get a call and say, "Hey, we got an offer to do Alias," or Alias is a bad example, because that's a perfect example of Elliot was like, "What else do you want to do outside of the Third Watch world?" Because I said something to the effect of, "I don't want to be known as the guy that can only do John Wells shows," which is not a bad thing, but I didn't want to get kind of pigeonholed. And he said, "Well, what other shows do you like?" And I said, "Well, there's this new show. It's kind of like La Femme Nikita, about she's like a college student by day and she's an assassin by night. It's called Alias." He goes, "Oh yeah, that's my friend's kid that does that show."
Oh wow!
And it was and my agent Elliot was friends with JJ's dad, and said, because to him JJ was some kid he knew as a little kid.
That's funny.
So I went and interviewed with JJ. They gave me an episode. I ended up doing 2, and just a show called Fast Lane in Las Vegas. I sort of found that wheelhouse of like some good, like very cinematic and like some good action and shootouts and car chases and stuff like that, which was
you like muscle cars yourself, correct?
Yeah, which is a good wheelhouse for me. I mean, I really liked when I would get something that wasn't like I fell into Veronica Mars, and I really enjoyed that because it was like there was a good sense of humor to it. It was just kind of like good acting with these young actors that were all really great. I mean, Kristen Bell. I remember a rehearsal or take 1 of the first scene I did with her. I just kind of I knew it with our friend Vanita. I said, this is one of the most incredible actors I've ever seen in my life. We do one take and I go, good for me. I mean, let's do another just to have it because we're doing good on time. But I knew Kristen was pretty phenomenal way back then.
What do you like most about entertainment as a director?
Just telling stories. I love the fact that it's not concrete or math, that it's, interpretation and subtlety and metaphor and subtext. I love the fact that, as a director, you're designing in 3 dimensions. It kind of combines everything that I like, timing, pacing, music, graphics, maps, art, and there's no, again, it's not math, it's an art.
What's the most challenging aspect of being a director for you personally?
Believe it or not, just managing time. In TV, the clock is ticking, and you can't get too precious and over design a shot that's going to take too long to shoot. But yet at the same time, you still want to put your signature on things, and you want to do. I mean, I'm capable. All those years of being a Steadicam operator, I know camera movement really well and pacing and timing. I mean, that was our wheelhouse, and the thing that put it on the map was all that movement and timing, and it was very cinematic. And in TV, you're constantly fighting the clock. I always say we have everything, every element in the world except for the ability to stop the clock. We can't take the hands of time and stop. And so that's frustrating, but it's also a challenge when you pull it off.
Have you ever considered quitting directing? And if yes, what kept you going?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, I'm really enjoying writing. It's been slow, and I'm the father of 2 daughters. So this is a very personal thing to me. There's a big push for diversity in my guild and in my industry. So the DGA, I joined 20 years ago, right? But in the the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it was an old boys club, and it was a lot of white males in their 50s.
Sure.
And that's where I find myself now. I mean, no fault of my own. It's just the way it is. And I understand. Like I was saying, like I have 2 daughters, so I want them to have every opportunity in the world. And I'm about as socially liberal as they come, so I'm down with the cause. But at the same time, it sort of pushed me into a list of people that they won't hire until they need to hire them. And I just want to work. I just want to apply my craft, and so it's very frustrating. So in the meantime, Fight Fire with Fire. I dusted off my old copy of Final Draft like 3 years ago, and I've written a bunch of spec, like what I would consider like streaming Netflix, Amazon, Hulu style ideas that would be great 8 to 10 episode series, half-hour dramedies.
Well, this brings up a really interesting thing to talk about. Would you mind speaking to the audience about the process of scripts getting made in Hollywood? Because, sometimes I don't think people realize a script can be written, but then sit around for years at a time, even decades.
Yeah, and sometimes it could be a great script, never gets made at all. Or there's all these, they call them like unproduced pilots, where they actually go and shoot the entire 1 hour, 2 hour. Like that thing I did with Lou Diamond Phillips, it was a 2-hour pilot for a really cool law series. We shot the shit out of it. Lou's amazing. And NBC saw it and they liked it, but they said, at the time the practice was on and Ally McBeal, and they said, well, there's too many law shows. So it never sees the light of day. And that's incredibly frustrating. You try and hedge your bets as much as you can and attach some talent to it and get it in the hands of some people that actually have the ability to get it made. But that's not easy, because if I know they have the ability to get something made, or they're an entity, a producer that can actually cause some buzz, and in the case of the thing that I'm working on now, if I know that, then other people, so they get bombarded, so they got to wade through this stuff, and then the reps get frustrated, and it's hard for their reps to weed out what's actually legit. But yeah, it can take a long time.
Of all the legendary actors you've worked with, is there someone that was a particular favorite?
No, because everybody's kind of different. I mean, it was definitely a trip working with, a Faye Dunaway or a Martin Landau. But what the golden apple and the joy of it is talking about something or an idea or a concept or something you want them to do or you need them to do. Because I always say, as a director, I don't direct you. I just kind of push you in a direction. And I'm your biggest fan. I'm the first audience. I'm your coach. I want you to do good more than you want to do good. But what's fun is talking about something. It's not in the script. It's not to be shared with anybody else. And a sentence or 2 words, and you see that wholesale change in the next time, take 3 compared to take 1 and 2. And you see that the little nudging that you did and your encouragement, because I've definitely worked with actors that will come up to me at the end of or halfway through an episode and go, I'm having the best time. And I go, what do you mean? They go, well, sometimes directors, I'm afraid if I mess up a line or I'm not doing it right, or they don't talk to me at all. I go over to talk to them and they're ordering cappuccinos and they're reading, looking at their iPad or reading something, and you seem to, and a lot of that is because when I became a director, I knew that people were going to go, oh yeah, here's the former camera guy who's going to be talking about lenses and composition and frames, but he's going to ignore us. And I lean the other way. I'll talk to the camera department and my cinematographer, but I'll do it quick, which is good because I know that world.
Well, they know what they're doing. You have to have a crew that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Not only that, but I can articulate what I need quickly. I'll say, we'll put a piece of rail here, put the 10-1 on this one, and the B camera can lie and wait for that look on when he walks out. Then I'll go over to the director's chairs, or I'll pull one of my actors aside and we'll start talking about the subtext of what's going on here. And it's little stuff like, I'll just lean in between takes and say, don't let him win. And the dialogue is counter to that. The counter is this guy's like, being very supplicant, or he's letting the guy walk all over him. And I'll say, for this take, don't let him win. Or, whatever it is. I mean, sometimes my best bit of direction sometimes is whispering, don't change a thing. It's awesome. It's great. Yeah. Or don't make any eye contact with him on this take. And I don't share that with anybody else. And so what's interesting is I'll leave to go back and watch the monitor, and I could feel I could sense the other actors are like, what did he just say to her? And now they're really paying attention to her because they don't know what bit of direction I gave. So I like all that stuff that, again, it's not written anywhere. It's not in the script. It's not in the parenthetical or anything. It just is what directors and actors do together. And when it works,
form communication.
Yeah. When it's working, it's great. And sometimes other actors just want to, they want to know what time they can leave because they got to go pick their kid up at preschool. And that's fine. I mean, my job is to get a performance that feels honest and real in spite of all the things. Timing, it's pouring rain. If you ever shot in Vancouver, there's a lot of challenges, but of course that's the more under pressure and the more on a deadline I am, sometimes I get my best stuff, I find, when it's all said and done.
Well, Guy, I'm curious, do you think that being a director has made you a better or worse parent?
Better. I mean, I have some great stories. I mean, both my girls are interested in the process. And so we talk a lot about, things that I've done, or we'll watch a movie together and I'll say, that's interesting that they did this because from my experience, I know that to do that, you need to do this. So, they get some insight that they may not have gotten if I wasn't a director. And Lulu, my 15-year-old, has definitely acted a bit and been in some stuff, and she's taken some of my tips with her to set, and it's been fun to watch the result of that.
If you had to choose one thing, what's the most valuable lesson that you think you've learned so far from your career?
Just diplomacy. I kind of pride myself in, not favoring, because I definitely have worked with directors, or I know of directors that will, anybody that's not, above the line, they have an attitude with them on one thing, on one level, but anybody that, is not, sort of can't do anything for them, they treat them not as nice. And so I take pride in being just as friendly and happy to hang out with the PAs and the background artists than I do the stars, because the way I figure is we're all making a pie, and maybe somebody brings one little sliver of the pie, and I bring in an eighth of it or a quarter, depending on the scene. Sometimes I'll bring in half the pie, but at the end of the day, we all want to enjoy a complete delicious pie, right? So we're all part of this, and I think if you're part of the creative team, or anything to do with a TV show or a movie, you deserve to be treated like a collaborator. Obviously, there's a hierarchy and diplomacy, but sometimes the best idea wins. And I'll be in a meeting and we're talking about something art department wise, and one of the somebody that's not there's production designer, art director, somebody on their team will say, there could be a cool thing where we put drapes on that window, and then the switch over to make it another room will only take 10 seconds because I can put Velcro on them. And you go, that's a great idea, do that. Whereas, there's definitely directors and producers out there that would, because it wasn't their idea, it can't be a good idea. The nice thing is my 12 years behind the camera, sitting there, I used to say it was like sitting ringside at a fight, but being a camera operator is like being in the fight with the fighters, because I could overhear the actors talking to the director and giving a bit of an adjustment and seeing the result of that. And I'm in the vortex of everything that's important. That's why I like being a camera operator, because I was like the maven of everything. Hair department, makeup department would come up and talk to me, or I would before we roll, I'd go, we got to fly away or whatever.
Would you tell other aspiring directors that being in camera is a great tool to have for what they want to do?
For me, I don't know any other way, but for me, it was invaluable, because my first day on set as a director, it just felt, I literally was walking around going, this is the kind of stuff we would do if the director called in sick and they said, all right, guy, as the camera operator, you're going to direct. It was very natural, because there's a protocol and a way a set works. Somebody described it to me as, you can take the virtual temperature of a set when you walk onto it, mm-hmm. where there's tension, where there's things that are working well and things that aren't working well. And your ability to do that as a director is pretty important. You need to know how that works, not be blind to it, or not be tone deaf to the fact that, and again, in that prep period, I get a lot of intel from every department about this set. The production designer will go, this set shoots great, but it's a pain in the ass to shoot in. So if you want to remove a wall to get back a little bit, let us know a day ahead of time, and we'll get it off. We'll get it out of the way and on jacks. So if you want to move it back in, we'll move it in quick, but we'll get it out of the way. So your first setup. So that diplomacy and just showing, a lot of that is that 7-day prep period, especially on a show I've never done before, is making sure all the departments know that they're in good hands. Because what happens a lot, and this has happened in the last couple of years with a big push for diversity, is there's a lot of people that are really green, like directors that are coming in that have done like 1 or 2 episodes, and they don't know what you'll say. Do you want a 2-shot, or you want like a cowboy, or do you want 2T? And they really don't know they know what kind of cappuccino they want, but they don't know what they don't speak the language quite yet. And they may get it someday, but in the meantime, you got a crew of wily old veterans that, between like the dolly grip, the gaffer, and the cameraman, you may have 90 years of experience. And it's a little disheartening sometimes when the person that's supposed to be in charge of everything for that episode kind of is a little lost, and they have that glazed over look in their face. So for me, as hopefully a wily old veteran, if I come in within the first 2-3 days of prep, they know they're in good hands, and I have some original cool ideas, and I'm thinking in terms of, how are we going to do this, within 2 hours. Like I'm kind of checking off all the boxes. that's that diplomacy that I'm talking about. That's the one thing that that I find I'm pretty successful with.
If you hadn't worked for so many years in entertainment, what do you think you would have done?
Oh man. I mean, I've always liked like maps and architecture and looking at like plans. So possibly architecture or drafting or something in design. I mean, I don't sit there and stare at buildings that are beautifully constructed or whatever, but I definitely, that would be something I could be attracted to.
What was your favorite childhood book?
Oh man. Believe it or not, one that always sticks with me, I want my 15-year-old to read it, is, I think it's called PT 109. And it was basically John F. Kennedy, I think, wrote it about when he was in World War II. He was on a PT boat and it got shot down and started to sink. And I just remember that being, I mean, the words just leapt off the page. And so also The Outsiders was pretty cool. And I have a great story about that because I'm really good friends now with Susie Hinton, who wrote it. And she was a big fan of Supernatural. So a couple times that I went up to do my episodes, she would come and just be a fan.
Oh, that's cool.
And stay with us for a week. And so I got really close with her. And I told her, I said, I'm sure you hear this story all the time, but I remember reading that book in like 7th grade. And when we all finished it, the teacher goes, okay, 2 things. The writer was 15 years old when she wrote it. And it blew our minds because he said SE, the S stands for Susan. Because it was a very tough, like, about gangs and, it was very dark and tough. Yeah. And you just assume some, 50-year-old man wrote it. And so that I told her, that really opened up my mind to like what art is, that telling stories is pretty, you don't have to fit into a mold to tell a certain type of story.
What was the first movie you saw that made you cry?
Old Yeller was one that we all, that was a Disney one where the dog dies. Spoiler alert.
Well, Guy, if you were elected president of the United States tomorrow, what are the first 3 things you would do, President B?
Oh, man. Well, it's all the stuff that we're hoping Joe Biden will get into really quickly here. There needs to be a standardized sort of plan on stopping this virus. I mean, you got a bunch of people that have been doing nothing for the last 8 months and blaming everyone else, which is classic narcissistic, sociopathic behavior. It'd be nice to sort of work on, what all that, everything to do with kids being taken away from their parents at the border. I mean, I think that's just, to call ourselves Americans and sign off on that is just embarrassing. Hopefully that'll end quick. And, some kind of healthcare that makes sense for everybody. That's not being, it's all the insurance companies are basically running that whole thing and paying off certain elected officials to push for the agenda that they want. And we need to stop that. There's too much money in government. That's the problem. Lobbyists and all that.
One of my favorite questions to ask on the show, which I always like to credit Jolene with because she's the one that actually came up with this question for me. But if you could sit down for 4 hours in an old-timey pub with one person from all of human history, alive or dead, excluding any members of your own family and any prophet like Jesus, Moses, or Muhammad, who would you sit with? What would you drink? And what would be the first question you would ask them?
To me, Paul Newman was my favorite actor. Still is. It'd be cool just to hang out and have a drink with him.
Okay, so you and Paul Newman, you're sitting in this old pub. What are you guys going to drink?
Oh, God, just beer. He looks like a beer guy. I used to see him. He co-owned a IndyCar team, and so I'd go to IndyCar races like Long Beach and Vancouver. And I used to see him, 25 feet away or whatever, sitting in the stand, or the pit box. And all I wanted to do was see his eyes, and he always had the thick Wayfarer sunglasses on. And I always felt weird yelling at him. I was like, take your glasses off. I never did that. I used to go, fucking Paul Newman right there.
So you and Paul Newman are sitting in this old pub and you're drinking a couple of beers. What's the first question you're going to ask him?
What was your favorite thing that you did as an actor? I know what my favorite things he did are, but it'd be interesting to see if it's something from early in his career or later in his career. Yeah.
What's your guilty TV pleasure?
I don't know if it's guilty, but I like all the home improvement, Homes on Homes, Property Brothers. About 10 years ago, I ripped apart my house and did a lot of, I hired some contractors that did the, plumbing and electrical and some special stuff, but a lot of the demo I did myself because I had watched a lot of those shows. But I like all the $1 Million Real Estate, and those are all fun. And then my other like true guilty pleasure is to kill time at my computer. If I'm waiting for something, I'll go to YouTube and look at Russian dash cam videos. It'll take you down a wormhole that you'll never get out of. Well, an hour-long wormhole,
No, I actually look. We have a tradition of watching fail videos, and a lot
yes,
of the Russian dash cam videos are in
yeah.
there as well. They're
The
great.
other one is supercar crashes, like guys crashing Lamborghinis and stuff.
Oh man, that's funny.
There's hours of it, but what's interesting is so many people, like from all, not necessarily Russia, from all around the world, have dash cam videos, and they're like full HD, gorgeous video with great audio. So it's like incredible how good the quality is now, and it's just getting better and better every day. I mean, they're gonna do 4K in a second here.
Are you happy with the journey of life so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think, generally I don't have any enemies in life. My daughters like me, and I like hanging out with them. I've tried to always be a good guy and contribute, and be a good neighbor, and take the dog for a walk every day, and got plastic bags to clean up the poop. I'm not a burden. It's just good karma. I always say I'm not a very religious person, but I do believe in fate, karma, destiny. I talked to my 15-year-old about, like, you'll do something that you may not realize is good. Like you're banking karma points. Like if you're driving, because we're teaching her to drive. So I'll say, if you let somebody in front of you, like slow down a little bit and blink flash your flashers, let them over. It's just good karma. Now you put that into your karma bank, and later on, a day or a week or a year later, you may need somebody to help you out and let you in traffic, or something worse. You may have a flat tire at 4 a.m, and that karma that you put in the bank is going to come back to pay you back. So
I agree completely.
yeah. So I try and get my karma bank, nice and loaded up.
Are you afraid of dying?
Yeah, I just feel like I have a lot of stuff I still want to do, and I will feel that way up until I'm in close to dying. I feel like, but that's it. You want to leave a good impression when you go. So that's all that, just trying to be a good contributing member of society.
If you could continue to live a healthy life, how long would you like to live?
I joke around about 88 because my birthday's August 8th. And so 8s have always been my good luck number. So I go, if I could live to 88, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty poetic.
What about 808?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, if Pfizer keeps developing vaccines quickly, well, maybe we are going to live a lot longer. Who knows?
If you could go back in time and tell your younger self anything and sit down with like 15 or 20-year-old guy, what would it be?
I always say, I just jokingly say, never, 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 ever, ever, ever give up. So if you, there's an old quote about people that give up on things that they want will never know how close they were to getting them because they gave up. So I always, that's that morbid curiosity. It's like, it's why I keep writing, and keep sending emails and checking in and following up. And, I use the term circling back a lot because all it takes is somebody to go, oh yeah, I've been meaning to get back to you. Yes, let's do that. But if I wouldn't have circled back, they may have forgot about me. And it happens to me where I'll forget about, somebody will send me an email and I'll forget about it. And unless they nudge me a little bit, in other words, I've been the victim of that. So I know people fairly enough will forget to return an email, et cetera, or whatever. So you never know how close you were to getting something you need or want if you give up. So I always say, just never give up. Your diplomacy will tell you, time to take no for an answer, or when to sort of go, okay, well, I've exhausted everything here, and now I'm going to cross the line into being a jerk or a pest. And you never want to be a jerk or a pest. Again, it's that whole diplomacy that I was talking about as a director. It's a lesson you kind of need to learn, and the only way you get that is experience.
What do you think is the purpose of art?
Pure joy, hopefully, make you feel good. I mean, if music makes you feel good, looking at pictures, I just sit back. I got guitars on my wall, and I just sit back and look at them and appreciate them. Joy, and there's different levels of joy, but obviously, aesthetics. I know that's kind of, again, I can only speak for myself, but that's always kind of got me through. I appreciate design, beautiful cars, beautiful guitars, good music, good food is an art. That's why part of the reason I like sushi so much is, the presentation is so cool. It's like you feel bad about eating it sometimes because it's like, wow, look how great that is. Yeah.
What does success in life look like to you?
I always joke around when I see my daughters smile or I hear them laugh. That's all the religion. I always say I'm not a very religious person, but when I see my daughters smile or laugh, or they send me a video that they think I will appreciate, or we're just together and I crack like the world's worst dad jokes in the world, and they're like, oh, the more groanier, the better. That's all the evidence I need to know that there's a force out there bigger than me, and I know that they're going to carry on after I'm gone, and that feels good.
Well, Guy, the last thing we do on the show is a little game I have, if you remember, called 299 Philosophical and Life Questions with Moonbird. I have a list here of 299 fun and some poignant questions I've collected from friends, family, and the internet. You get to pick your 2 favorite numbers. I'll ask you those 2 questions. What are your 2 numbers? Drum roll, please.
I think we'll go for an 8.
Okay, and what's the second one?
Let's do... just because the first episode I ever directed was in episode 13, I'm going to go 113.
All right. 8 and 113. Number 8. This is a very serious question we've had on the show a couple of times before. Your bedroom, your car, your desk, which would you clean first and why?
Desk, because it's usually in a state of disarray. I always got stuff lying out, and I feel so good when I clean my desk. I hardly do it, but it makes me feel good. In fact, I don't want to. If I turn this camera around and tilt it down, you'd see what I'm talking about. So yeah, desk for sure.
All right, number 113. I already know the answer. Windows or Mac?
Yeah, I'm a Mac guy from day one, from '93.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Well, it's funny because '93 I did a movie in the Bahamas, and my next door neighbor that we had the adjoining room with was the still photographer. I was the B camera Steadicam operator. He was the still photographer, and we were the first 6 weeks or 4 weeks of the movie, we were on nights. We started on nights. And so we would go to work at 6 p.m. So we had all day. I mean, you'd sleep till hopefully 2 or 3 p.m. Then we'd get up and have quote unquote breakfast, sit by the pool a little bit, get our base tan going. And so I would knock on his door and say, hey, you ready to go have breakfast? And he would let me in. And he had at the time, it was the Power Book, and he was editing pictures.
That's
he had an early digital camera. He was shooting film, but he had early digital camera, 93.
How fun.
But and I go, so tell me about it. He goes, well, I do this. And he goes, and I churn out my invoices. And I had like the old invoice book that you hand write when I build them for my Steadicam. So he goes, you can type it out. I got a portable printer. And so I said, this is so cool. So he hooked me up with this guy in Burbank at a place called the Connecting Point. It's like, there was way before Apple stores. And so I bought a Mac PowerBook and a little printer, and it had the little, sprocket holes on the side. So when you're done, you have to go, yeah, exactly. So in '93, he hooked it up with this guy. I spent like $2,500 on this Fakakta MacBook and the printer. So 27 years, I've been a Mac fan.
Guy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's always such a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah.
Wish you, of course, the best of luck with everything in the future, and hope I get to see some projects you're working on soon.
I'll keep you posted.
Have a great day, buddy.
All right. Tell Jolene I said hey.
I will. Talk to you later.
All right, pal. See ya.
Hey, friends and listeners, we're getting very close to the end of this year's podcast season, and we have a very special episode coming for the last episode of this year, so definitely stay tuned. Meanwhile, if you want to wish us a happy holiday season, please head over to patreon.com/Moonbird and throw a couple bucks our way to bring on the cheer. And if you'd like even more Moonbird in your life, and hey, who wouldn't? Head on over to memoriesofamoonbird.com or visit me on social media at Memories of a Moonbird. That's a wrap, and stay safe.